back to my channel, and welcome back to part 2 of the sine wave video, where I want to talk about the design and so forth. As you can see, I'm not holding the sine wave. I'm holding what I've named Sequoia Ergo. It's my headless redwood top and back arch top ergonomic shaped guitar. I designed this so I could sit in front of a computer and learn from instructional videos, and I don't even have to hold it when there's a strap on it. It's just there. But this is what I was playing when the spark happened that, I guess you could say, ignited the pathway to the sine wave guitar. The size and the shape of this guitar caused me to do some things that you don't normally see in arch top guitars. Guitar makers out there that are watching this video, you know how a thin guitar has a tendency to want to fold up under tension over time. The structural attributes that a bent wood side gives a guitar diminish as they get thinner. So when I designed this guitar, I used a very old tactic that's been around since early 1900s, dating back to the broom handle guitar, putting a brace inside to help you withstand string tension so it doesn't fold up and stays stable. Well, in this case, I put a beam, a carbon fiber reinforced, a beam that I put through a quarter sawn beam that I reinforced with some carbon fiber rod. And the whole idea was just to put the string tension on that, and I think, well, it might be beneficial, taking all that stress off the top, maybe having it more free to vibrate. But the shape and all caused me to use a different bracing design that I'd never used before. Because of the way it is, I tried to break it up in equal part sections around my brace, so I was controlling the top area, vibrating area, evenly. And I did a very open, what I call an open X. Arch top makers know that, the Acquisto referred to it as like scissors, X bracing. The more you open them up, the more mellow your sound gets. The more you close up the X, the more it's like parallel bracing as far as how it sounds and so forth. Well, I really opened this up, and because there's no F-holes, I was really able to do a very open X. I moved the sound hole up here, just get it out of the way, and maybe give me a little bit of reverb action going on here. But I was playing this, and this guitar has surprising volume. The side is, I think, 1 inch and 1/16 deep, and it's a bent wood side. It's made like a standard acoustic guitar, except for the fact that it has a very large tail block to incorporate this set of tuners that I made. But the guitar has surprising volume for such a thin guitar. Good volume, but it still has that thin line guitar sound. And with it being arched plates, when you get up here, you get a kind of a mandolin-like sound. It has a mandolin-like flavor. It doesn't have the double courses, so you don't get the full mandolin effect. But you can hear what I'm talking about. And I was playing it one day, and I was noticing that, just how mandolin-like it is up there. And I thought, I like it. I wouldn't change anything about this guitar if I was making it again. I would do it exactly the same way because I like the way I like the uniqueness of the sound, and I'm happy. But I know that a lot of jazz players out there, jazz guitarists, probably wouldn't like that too much. And that's when the spark happened, right there. Well, how would you build a thin line archtop acoustic guitar that didn't sound like a thin line and didn't have those attributes? So I sat there and I thought about it a second or two. The sound attribute, if you want to call it that mandolin-like sound, is caused by the small distance between the two plates, how fast the sound bounces back and forth, and there's really no way to get rid of it unless you lose the back. The only way to have a thin line guitar that doesn't sound like a thin guitar is to get rid of the back. And then it's like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. You do that, you lose the Helmholtz resonance of the sound box that helps accentuate your bass. You lose the volume that the back plate helps produce. You're going to lose this and this and this and this and this. All these things are running through my head. But I know from designing instruments for 30 years, especially a lot of one-offs, that you don't gain one thing without giving up something else. And if you're giving up a whole bunch of stuff, there's got to be a gain somewhere. And that's when it hit me. The gain would be clarity. You get rid of the Helmholtz resonance, all this stuff, all this cacophony of bouncing around sound waves in here. And maybe you don't know, but sound waves at the same frequency that are 180 degrees out of phase literally cancel each other out. It is the basis of noise canceling technology and how it works. So all this kind of stuff is going on here inside this box at the speed of sound. Mach 1. And I'm thinking, well, clarity, yeah. Is it worth the trade? Well, I don't know. Because, I mean, you can get clarity in a guitar by a solid body guitar. It's going to have clarity. You know, you're going to have no acoustic resonances really messing with it very much. It all comes through the pickup. But in an acoustic guitar, if you wanted clarity like to that level, the only way to do it is to get rid of the back. And you know, you first think of things like open back banjos. At the very shrill, they put the resonators on them because they're so bright, and to give them that little bit more of a bassy response. But guitars don't sound like banjos, especially archtops. So the wheels started turning, and I thought, well, it's a lot of trouble to build a whole instrument just to find out if this idea has any merit whatsoever, if it's really worth even fooling with. And I remembered that I had this old Harmony Cremona body with the back off of it. The neck was long gone, it was busted, and I threw it away. And I had worked on it a little bit, put a new neck block in it, and I was going to make a neck for it and just fix it and get it playing again. And I replaced the neck block with one that helps fit my design. I've always done a rounded in neck pocket, didn't mess with dovetails. I like a neck that goes, I like to have the neck wood go all the way to the end of the fretboard. I don't like the tonal changes that happen when you go over an acoustic body, but that's just one of my things. But I had put one of those neck blocks in it, and it was still sitting in the closet for more than 20 years with the back off of it, and that's as far as it ever went. I never made a neck for it. I remembered I had that in the closet. So I thought, well, maybe I should dig that out. And somewhere along the line, a guitar that I made very early when I first started making guitars, it actually had a plywood body. Well, it's through a chain of events came back to me with a messed up headstock and a hole in a big crack in the side, and it just, first position frets were all worn out. It was buzzing. I hung it up, thought, well, maybe I'll do something someday with it, try to fix it up. Never did. It hung on the wall for 2 years. I never touched it. I thought, I've got a neck right there. And all I got to do is just fix it a little bit and maybe just replace the frets in it. Why don't I dig out that Harmony body, do a little bit of experiment, see if there's some merit to this. The back's already off of it. So, I did. Let me hang this back up here. This is a 1941 Harmony Cremona with a solid spruce top, parallel braced, and the braces weren't even glued in this top. They were carved out of the wood. The wood was just removed around the to create parallel braces. That's the way they did them. Save money and time, I guess. But anyway, I reworked that neck, put new frets in it, fixed it up, redid the heel to make it a bolt-on neck, and I did this. I made a carbon fiber reinforced beam to go through the middle, carry the string tension. I had some aluminum 3/8 rod, did that. After I did the beam and placed it and glued it in, and I set up a temporary form inside the guitar and mixed up epoxy and carbon fiber. It's a really messy stuff to deal with. And I poured this rim in place. Masked everything off to keep any epoxy from getting in. I did have one place that leaked a little bit. I got a little bit of epoxy right up here on the top. Before I did all this, I thinned the top down everywhere I could. I found out that the top was actually relatively thick in some places, but I couldn't thin where this cloth was, and some of it was micing at like 140, 0.140, pretty thick, in my opinion, for a parallel brace top. But I did shave the braces a little bit, did some work, and I left the kerfing in it. The carbon rim doesn't take the place of the kerfing in it, which is a negative thing in my opinion. But I was just trying to retrofit and just test the idea without spending a lot of money. So I did this, and I went in the door thinking, well, if it doesn't really make a great acoustic, I can always, put nickel strings on it and stick a pickup on it. Just make it like a hollow body electric. What do you see? It was a little disappointing. Acoustically, the clarity was there. All the things that I knew or thought would be there, the clarity and everything was there, but the acoustic volume was just a little disappointing. It was like I'd given up too much. That was my opinion. I put a pickup on it, wired it up. Makes a great hollow body electric, if you want to call it a hollow body now. But it wasn't impressive. So I basically just took the whole idea, threw it on a shelf in my head, and forgot it. Didn't think much more about it. We'll revisit this. I know you want to hear it. But I was surfing on the internet one day. I'm going to refer to my piece of paper because I can't remember names. I was on a website looking at some guitars, and I was looking at some design ideas that he was sharing on his website, and he was showing a guitar back, and he had little thin spruce braces across, and he went across with a carbon fiber strut to maintain the arch in the brace and keep it supported. And he removed a lot of mass by thinning down that brace like that, and that putting that tension across there. He called it a compression brace. Well, I'm looking at that and I thought, well, that's pretty smart. I like that. And then it hit me. What if you did that to the braces in an archtop guitar? Turn them into compression trusses. And boy, you talk about falling off the shelf. That idea for that backless guitar went, boom! I'm here. So, I decided to find out without building a whole guitar. Oh, I didn't mention his name. I should have mentioned his name. The luthier's name is Rory Dowling of Turan Guitars. And I've looked at his website since then, and he's doing something a little different with a cable type strut instead of the carbon fiber strut, which is also very interesting. He's done some really neat stuff. But I built a test rig, and I'll put up some pictures here that I took while I had it in operation when I was doing the testing, because just my verbal description is not going to be very good to give you an idea of what I was doing. But I set this up with a brace across here, and I've set this up to be at the approximate height that the top of a bridge would be with most of the arch tops that I build, as far as the thickness of the top, the height of the bridge, kind of duplicating what I like to do. This is a low E string and a high E string, and tuners to tune it up with. And you can see here, I've got basically a compression brace, compression truss style brace, the carbon fiber strip across the bottom. And I come up with this to try to remove all the variables that I could. I didn't want a soundboard. I couldn't glue a soundboard to this and then take it off and put it on a different brace. So I got the idea that, paper is wood. So I cut some identical size squares out of a cereal box. You think, well, that's stupid. Well, maybe. But I glued them on the braces I was testing, and so they were my soundboards. And they were all the same. They come out of the same box. They're all the same density, same thickness, same everything. So no variables. Glued one on this side, glued one on this side. I've got a little strip of rosewood across here to be my saddle. I didn't want a bridge. I didn't want to put another variable in there. And what I did is I went to tune the strings up, and I tested how much decibels would come off of this. I put my decibel meter over it. You can see it in the picture I'll show you. And instead of trying to hit the string the same, no, I walloped it. Everything I could put on it. And I did it 10 times for each frequency that I tested. The E, open E string frequency. I think I went on up to a G, A, went all the way up to the octave. Several different things. And I tested each one 10 times and wrote down the average. I wrote down the decibel. I put it in the hold feature, did the maximum decibels, and I wrote it down. I did it 10 times, and then I averaged out that. Divide it by 10 and get an average. I wrote that down. I did it first with a standard brace shape, like I would put in an archtop guitar. I carved a brace out of, it's actually quarter sawn pine, but it's low rosin content pine, so it's very much like spruce. But that wasn't that important to me, and the braces were cut out of the same piece of wood, side by side, so there was no variable there very much. You have a little bit, but not much. This is one of the braces, and it's thin. And if you look closely, you can probably see that it sagged a little bit in the middle. It wasn't shaped in the way a normal brace is, and it couldn't support itself. But anyway, over the standard carved brace shape, this one averaged, I think, 5.5 decibels more volume than the standard brace shape. But of course, this would fail probably over time. And to remove yet another variable, I took the standard brace shape that I had tested as my control, and I reshaped it. I shaped it down thinner, and this is not super thin. For a parallel brace, this would be cutting it a little bit thin, but for an X brace, this is not that thin. But this brace, with the strap on the back of it, set up on that rig, produced an average of 12 decibels more volume than this same brace did, carved as a more standard archtop brace. It's the same. This is the one that This is the loser that became the winner. And that's on one string. I tested the strings separately, low E, high E. I was writing all this down and really trying to do it as scientifically as I could because I really wanted to know, is it worth my time? 12 decibels. So that idea started just jumping right back up there. Is a backless guitar, giving up all that internal resonance worth it? Well, I was still undecided. I mean, that's a big difference. But, is it still going to make that much difference glued to a top? Is it still going to be, that amazing? I didn't know. So I was just kind of just letting it stew. I hadn't made a decision to build anything. Now it's time to revisit the harmony. Because one day I just got this down, I was messing with it, playing it a little bit. Turned it over and looked at it. And my pea brain had a little spark happen again. The light bulb went off. Because this is parallel braced, this beam was doing the exact same thing that this strap on the back of this brace was doing. Let that sink in a minute. This is the back strap for that brace. So, this thing went to the workbench right then. The X-Acto knives came out. And this brace, with the string still on this thing, started getting carved down. This one and this one. Because that's when I realized this was reinforcing those braces in the same way that that carbon back strap was reinforcing that brace. And I knew because this neck block, what little bit was left out of it, I used a router to remove a lot of this to thin this thing down to this thickness. Still had the remnants of that neck block that I glued in there, that I glued this to. But that shortened the parallel brace from here to there. So all these things together was making that top way too stiff. So by shaving the brace down, volume level went up a considerable amount. And I knew that there's so many flaws in this right here, acoustically, where I can redesign with a clean slate and improve on this. So I did. No longer was I unsure. I felt sure that I could build something that would be usable, good volume, clarity. 5 months later, a little over 5 months later, we have the sine wave. And I named it the sine wave. If you want to get really technical, I guess you could say the sine wave 360. Because 360 radians is also 0. Perfectly in phase. But that's where the name comes from. But all my ideas are here. The backstrap braces, the composite rim for all that rigidity and strength and density. The carbon fiber rods are solid. They're not tubes that could have internal frequencies of their own. The frequencies of these will stay high. Won't mess with me. The back braces, because of the down pressure on the top, they're under tension. Where they cross in the center, I've glued pieces of felt to keep them from rattling against each other. But even with that, felt on them. Now, right now, you're probably asking, how did he get them tuned to the same note? How do you get the same tension on them like that? Well, there's a trick to that. Glue the top to the rim, get everything in place with the straps already glued on this end. But don't glue these until it's already in place and it's exactly where it's going to be. That way your tension stays pretty much the same. Little trick. But I tried to design this in ways that would, everything I could do to free up the top. Nothing restrictive. I went with the open X brace shape that created so much volume in that little headless ergo. I thought it worked there. Why won't it work here? Well, that left a great big huge area here, and I'm going to show you some pictures of the bracing of the top, before, how it looked before I glued it to the rim. That makes it a lot easier to see. Big huge area right here with no bracing, and I didn't want anything weird to happen there. So I went off the base side and put a small cross brace where it really doesn't show. Did that. Another trick I used to try to free up the top, because of the beam carrying all, the majority of the string tension and the rim and everything, I didn't see any reason that I needed to glue the top to a neck block. I didn't see any reason to attach it here. The top, if you look closely here, right beside the neck, let me get this right where you can see it. You see the gap that opens up as soon as you go away from the edge here, it opens up. Well, that gap goes all the way around the neck. The neck does not attach to the top. It attaches as a beam. I did a bolt-on neck. It's just way simpler than trying to attach wood to carbon fiber, because there's carbon fiber on both sides of that beam, heavier weight carbon cloth that's laid up in a press. All this took a lot of time, temporary forms, and but I put a small brace across the top right in here where you really can't see it, very much of it, just to stabilize the top across that area for the hole that's cut out for the neck. But the top attaches here and around the rim, and from here around the rim. It's completely free floating right here. So that's just one less restriction on the top to try to make volume. I used every trick that I could come up with to try to make it work. And I don't know if you can see it in the video. Maybe you're catching a few sparkles here and there. But I put a little bit of color shifting pigment in the carbon fiber layup when I did the rim, just for a little added sparkle. And I tried something else, which I don't know if you consider it a failure. I don't consider it a great success. But I poured, instead of putting abalone or something around the outside edge, I did the binding just the way you would to put abalone shell in. But then I set the body up nice and level, masked everything off, and I poured some epoxy with some color shifting pigments, a mixture of pigments that kind of mimics the color of abalone. And I mixed that up and I poured it in place around the rim. Did the same thing on the headstock. It's kind of subtle, but if the light hits it just right, you get a little bit of sparkle in there. It's not a failure, but it's not really a success either. It's just kind of subtle. But, something to try. I tried something. I looked at the price of abalone now. $85 an ounce for good abalone. And it would have cost me right at $300 just for enough abalone to go around this outside rim. That's getting up there, and I just didn't want to spend it. So I tried something different, and I learned. It's okay. Nothing to write home about. Okay, we've talked about the positives of this design, the volume, so forth. I don't think the tone's bad either. I like the tone pretty good too. But it is bright. The negatives. Do I think this is going to take the world by storm and manufacturers are going to jump on this? No. This is just too labor intensive. It's too expensive. You could come up with forms and come up with autoclave carbon rims and stuff that make this possible in a mass production type of way. But arch tops are a niche thing. They're just not that popular. I don't see any manufacturer ever spending that kind of money on it. Do I think there's merit in these backstrap braces? If you want to call them back. It's compression, truss, brace, whatever name you want to put on them. I'm not going to try to coin the term. Somebody else will come up with something better. The drawbacks to these. When you put a strap on a brace like this, humidity changes are going to be a concern. A top. This is a 19-inch wide top. And I should probably touch on that. Oh, he went big for the top to get loud. You could say that. But most arch top guitar builders know that 18 inches is pushing it. Because you don't have enough string energy to really work an 18-inch top. Some people say 17 inches are louder than 18 inches because they work the top better. So, yeah, you can use your own judgment on that. I did a 19 because I'd never done one. I did a foam board pattern to see if it would be comfortable enough sticking a 1-inch thick guitar up under my arm. Because 19, big 19s, you're like this. But if you can stick it under your arm, do like this right here, it's not a bad deal. And that's what I found out with my foam board pattern. Anyway, back to the subject. When you put a strap on the back of a brace like that, humidity increases, your top gets wider. This can't get wider. So the only place your top has to go, if it starts getting wider with a humidity change, is up. Raising your bridge, raising your action. So your guitar is going to be more sensitive to humidity changes with this. That means you got to do something about that. In this case, I can thank Ken Parker, because his idea about taking West Systems epoxy and doing a seal coat on your soundboard, basically a little bit it forms a layer right there in the very top of your wood, turning it into a composite. Like this is carbon fiber on top and the back on a piece of wood. Well, this is a composite now. Your top, in a way, becomes a composite by doing that, even though it's a very thin layer. And it does make a difference. And I can tell you this. I coated the back side of this top because it's all going to be exposed. It had to be finished. When I coated the back, I thought I had messed up. Because all that liveliness I was hearing in the top, just running my hand across and tapping on it, was gone. I thought, oh no. But I thought, oh, maybe not all is lost, because I know West Systems takes several days to fully cure and harden. And over that next several days, it came back just as strong as it ever was. So, a big relief, of course. But it reiterates what I'm saying about it becoming a composite. And I did the outside the same way. So both sides of this top was sealed with West Systems epoxy before I put the True Oil finish on it. And I don't mess with nitrocellulose anymore. When I worked in a cabinet shop, we bought it by the 55-gallon barrel, and I sprayed all the cabinets in the spray booth until the point I started getting sick from spraying it. And I was wearing a respirator and everything, but it's still... I don't spray lacquer anymore. I've got to where I either do French polish with shellac or I do True Oil, and that's it. And I'm not selling my instruments. If somebody wants to complain about it not being as flat and shiny as those nitrocellulose finish, okay, that's fine. It's my guitar. You're not paying me for it. But that helps with that. So the brace idea, may catch on. Some of you guys out there may try this, and I hope you do, because I think it can go somewhere. But you got to deal with that humidity thing, because you got to control that crown, because it will swell. And this carbon rim makes that even worse as far as this being an issue. With you have a wood rim on a wood guitar, well, humidity is making that wood rim swell too. Maybe not at the same rate as a spruce top, but it's going to give. It's going to let it go. Well, this right here is not going to give. This is going to stay right where it is. So there again, the only place your top has got to go is up. So we'll see over time how stable this top is, because if you notice this bridge, another thing that I did to try to get the most, because this is extra light strings. This all has to do with my arthritis and my hands problems. Short scale, less tension, lighter strings, lighter bracing to try to get the most out of this low horsepower. I've compared my guitars to Lotus 7s a lot of times. Very low horsepower, very lightweight, so they can perform. This bridge weighs, I think, 11.4 grams or 0.41 ounces. I made it just as slim and as light as I could. But there's no adjustment. I like bridges on an arch top that do not have adjustment. Now, there's some people out there that would never deal with that, because they'll adjust it, a couple times a week, some of them, according to the comments I've read on the internet. But we will see how the action behaves on this, and I may update in later videos, because I'm not trying to sell anybody anything, and I'm not trying to sell you on an idea. That's why I'm being totally honest about the downfalls of this design, because that is a very important issue. I may put the tuner, I've got a little, I'm just having this idea right off the cuff though, I hadn't even thought about it till right now. I may find out exactly what pitch this is ringing on, because I was planning on putting on another little strip of rubber on the back side of it, dampen it down, because when you hit it real hard you can get an overtone from this. But I may keep track of the pitch on this as the top goes through changes, through different humidity changes, and just monitor it and see exactly what happens. I don't know. That might be worth doing. But just for, it can ring out here, up here past the nut a little bit. I've got these dampers back, grommets back here to dampen the heart stuff back here. Some people don't, that doesn't bother them, but it drives me nuts. But it's still pretty loud up here. I'm probably going to need to put a piece of felt through it or something. But if I hit it real hard, listen to how those carbon braces in the back are ringing out. They'll continue to ring out after I mute this. It's not just up there. You hear it? So they really need to be muted a little bit more. But I may do it later, after just getting this idea about monitoring this pitch. Pretty loud. Okay, I think I've covered all the major design aspects. If you have questions, put them in the comments. I will try to answer questions as I have time. I've got a few things coming up that's going to keep me busy for a while. But I will try to answer questions if I can. I don't know everything, but thankfully I know a little bit. But do I think it was worth the time and trouble? Do I think it was a successful experiment? Yes, I do. I've learned a lot. And actually I just thought of something else I can share with you that you might find interesting. Carbon fiber conducts electricity. You can put a ohm meter against, I don't want to do it now because I've got finish on it, but before I put the finish on it, I put an ohm meter right here and touch the other contact right here, and you can read resistance across this beam. I put this piece of tubing, silicone tubing in here that's hollow. So before I put the carbon fiber and everything on this beam, and my intention was to run the wire from the pickup into that hole that I drilled to access the tube and run it through the tube back here. Well, when I went to hook that up, I don't think I've ever heard that much static come out of my amp before, ever. For somehow, I thought carbon fiber doing it like this, because I did know that it could conduct electricity. I thought this would act as shielding, just like your wire around your shielded wire. Well, it didn't. All this acted like an antenna, and it picked up so much hum that it was unbelievable. So the wire from my pickup is attached to the back of the beam on the outside of it now. That was impossible to do. There was no way to make it quiet down going through there. And I do have a ground. I machined out an piece of aluminum to go right in here. And before I laid up the carbon fiber here, I run a ground wire from that aluminum over into this pocket here so I could attach. So my tailpiece, let me just take this off, is that aluminum rod that goes through the composite into the beam, and the ends of the beam are keyed. Some of that epoxy goes up into the beam, so it's really holds very well. But that's the way I did the tailpiece. It grounds all the strings, because this is an ebony overlay that's epoxy to a brass block across there. But anyway, if that doesn't quite cover it, ask questions. I will answer. At this point, I'm going to put together a little collage of build pics. I took quite a few pictures during the process of building this, and I'll just let it run and let you see some of the headaches and stuff I had to deal with to make this thing. But if you like some of this stuff I'm doing, messing with, and you want to see more of it, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I got a long way to go before I could ever get monetized and make any money off of it. That may never happen. But if you like guitars, if you like, hang out with people that do crazy things with guitars and guitar design, and you like to have that kind of fun, like and subscribe. So I'm going to close this out. I guess if anything else happens, it's going to be in the comments section. But thank you for watching.